Now available on Lulu. John Haynes at Death's Door. The man who rules the world takes on the Greek god of death in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes comic book. Get your copy of the first John Haynes comic at lulu.com today. All images in this video are used under fair use of United States copyright law of 1976 and are used in conjunction with my commentary. Hi everyone, Sean here with another comic review video. And when I looked at the page for Savage Sins Kickstarter, I was intrigued by the design of the heroine. Now, the heroine is another one of these scantily clad bad girls who is just like a lot of the 90s bad girls from the Bad Girl comic era, such as Lady Death, She, Vampirella, and Razor. And I thought that Savage Sin was going to be a comic that would feature this heroine. However, the digital comic I received was a bait and switch. And I wanted to do this video to teach everybody a lesson on how to coordinate a comic project, because the way Larry Patrick Higgins coordinated this project really wasn't one that really showed you how to put together a comic that would be able to sell it in the future. Now, when you're doing comics, you only get one chance to make a first impression, and you really want to go out here and give your customers what you promised them on the first shot. Because if you don't give the customer what you promised them on the first shot, then people are going to feel like they're misled, and they're not going to have a motivation to go out here and pick up the next issue when you launch the next issue of your Kickstarter. Now, Larry Patrick Higgins is the creator of Savage Sin, and he brings us in with this very intriguing design of this very intriguing woman. And the design of this woman is featured prominently on the cover of the book, taking out a whole host of male characters. Now, this cover right here is one that is, as I see it, misleading as related to the comic that I received, because we see all of these pirates being taken out by her, and one guy actually getting his face skinned. That is the first cover, and we have several other variant covers on the Kickstarter, and we have this heroine featured prominently on the covers of this book, and she's also featured on one of the preview pages of the comic and several other preview pages of the comic. However, when you get the actual comic, which is what I received a couple of weeks ago, because I didn't have time to go out here and review this book because I was so busy working on other projects for the 2024 SJS Direct catalog, such as the Isis Dark Incubus book I've been working on, and the Eastern Horror of the Hamptons book. I finally got a chance to read Savage Sin, and I was deeply disappointed that we did not get the bad girl heroine that is featured prominently on the cover of this book. No, this character really doesn't show up until about 14 pages into the book, and what we get is a whole lot of expository sequences to open up the story, and the main character of those sequences is a bare-chested pirate named Wade, who in the beginning starts out not with a splash page to introduce us to him, which is really weak, because you really want to start out with a splash page, because a splash page introduces us to the main character, shows us what they want, and makes us care about that character. Because when you have a sequence like this, it's a really weak sequence. Yes, the art is absolutely gorgeous, but the sequence in and of itself is not very strong, because yes, we get the opening panel with the ship, we get the character of Wade in the center, but he doesn't look strong. No, he's looking like he's in the background of the entire page. And again, this is not a strong page to open up a book, which is supposed to go out here and again feature the intriguing bad girl that we all wanted to see on the cover. No, what we get is this guy Wade, who, again, is presented in a very passive manner. And again, that passive manner really does not show us why we need to care about this guy. Yes, we are in the middle of we have a ship in a storm. We have Wade asking about what's going on as related to the ship and storming up to the wheel of the ship to confront the captain. And as he's confronting Captain Bartum, he's demanding that he change the course, but the drunk captain is extremely angry. And with the drunk captain extremely angry and going on about some things as related to them and the booty that they have gone out here and acquired, and them being on the run from the Empire, we get all of this exposition, but there's no real mention of how this relates to the heroine. So Captain Bartum and Wade get into a fight. Wade gets tossed off the ship and he falls into the water. We get this mysterious fish-like woman who's supposed to be something from the creature from the Black Lagoon. And that's the big problem with this comic. The big problem with this comic is, yeah, you're telling me a story, but it's a story that seems to be a bit of a bait and switch. Because, again, we got the really attractive woman on the front, but we don't have any of her featured in the story. We're not introduced to her, and sadly, we're not introduced to her until about 14, 15, 16 pages into the story. That's when she basically shows up, and she shows up towards the near end of the comic, and that really is something that, again, feels like it's misleading, because, again, people who went out here and wanted to buy this comic and pledged money on their Kickstarters to buy this book were expecting to see this woman, and we don't see this woman in this book until much later in the comic. And again, you've already put 14 pages into the book, and the reader is 14 pages in, and they're expecting to see the story of this heroine. They're expecting to see why she's against these monsters, and we need a reason to care about her. And again, as we see her featured in these panels, she's not even a heavy focus of the panels, and that's a big problem because, again, this is a very intriguing character design, but we don't get a reason to get to know this character, and we don't get a reason to care about this character. And again, more passive presentation, because if we look at this sequence again, she's not featured strong as related to the focus. So when I'm looking at this book, I'm seeing the design, and it's just not the coordination of the story. And again, the storytelling is very passive. You have everything here as related to Wade, but again, Wade's story is overshadowing the story of this heroine, who we're supposed to be intrigued by. But the big problem is that she's the main focus of most of the variant covers. She's the main focus of all of the campaign, but she's not really featured prominently in the book. Now, what further compounds the whole thing as related to this book's problems is the lack of consistency. Now, we see the woman on the panels. Again, she's got this kind of barefoot design, but when we go to the Kickstarter, the design constantly changes as related to the covers. And again, the design constantly changes as related to it. She's got these boots on in this one. And again, that's another major problem as related to the coordination of this project. And when you're doing a project, again, what you want to do is make sure that your design remains consistent, because when you're selling a design, you are, again, trying to make a good first impression on your readers, because your readers want to go out here and they want to get to know your characters. And if your design isn't consistent, like we see here on this panel, and then later on we saw previously she was barefoot, but now she's got the boots on. If your design isn't consistent, then the readers are going to have a problem, because if your character's design is changing from panel to panel, then they're going to start saying, okay, whoever put this comic together really didn't do a good job of putting everything together. And again, everything is related to the coordination in this book that makes it a problem. I mean, you've got a gorgeous character design that is very compelling, just really captivating. You've got a really halfway decent story, but the big problems with Savage Sin that readers can learn as related to production design is you've got to make sure that your project is coordinated and that all your projects designs are consistent, and that your story is one that leaves a strong first impression on the reader. And this one, yes, the story was okay, but the problems were that we didn't get to know this heroine, and what the coordinators of this project, I believe, wanted to do was believe that their character design was so visually strong they could go out here and create one of these expository issues in order to pad the story out. And they thought, oh, you'll buy the first issue, and then after you've bought this first issue, you're going to want to go out here and pick up the second issue. That's a covert contract that won't possibly get fulfilled by many pledges who will feel like they got burnt by this issue, because if we don't see the heroine on the first page, then people are going to feel like they're being misled, and they're going to feel like they got a bit of a bait and switch. Because what happened with this book is what many people accuse Disney Plus of doing as related to their so-called heroines on shows like The Mandalorian and the show Obi-Wan Kenobi. They feel like, hey, you told me that this show is about this male hero, but in actuality, I get this show revolving around some so-called strong woman, but that strong woman is not really is the one who's the main focus of the story, and you feel like you're cheated. And that's the way I felt when I was reading Savage Sin, because in Savage Sin, again, we get the cover that features the heroine on some very gorgeous art, but we don't get the heroine as related to the art from Eduardo Garcia and Larry Higgins. No, what we get is a book that's 90% about Wade. And again, I didn't pay money to see Wade. I paid money to see this very intriguing heroine, and I paid money to see the intriguing heroine. And again, I wanted to see how she was the Savage Sin, but I didn't get to see her being the Savage Sin. No, what I got was a book filled with exposition, and again, that's not the kind of first impression you want to make on readers. No, you want to go out here and give readers what you promised. You want to make sure that your main character is featured prominently, because this is not just about selling the comic. This is about the integrity of your reputation and the integrity of your brand, and that's why you want to go out of your way to leave a strong first impression on your readers. You really want to go out here and give readers what you promised them on your Kickstarter. I mean, when you're doing crowdfunding, you want to go out here and give the readers exactly what you're presenting to them, because if you don't give them exactly what you presented to them, and it's related to the images that you show on your page, what you're going to do is wind up turning off those readers the time you're ready to sell that second issue, because that second issue and that second comic project you do is only sold based on the work of your first work. That's what I'm trying to do with my comic John Haynes at Death's Door. If I did a second comic, I would want to go out here and provide readers with a product that gives them what I promised them on the cover, because I have to go out here and again give the customer what I promised them, because if I don't give them what I promised them, like I try to do again here, I'm going over to John Haynes at Death's Door. You see, John Haynes is featured prominently. I mean, he's on the center, and as you look at the cover, everything is with him in the lead, and as he's in the lead, he's the main focus of the book. We see the main focus of the book is John Haynes, whereas on Savage Sin, we can look at it and go, okay, this is the woman who's supposed to be up front, but she's not up front in the comic. And again, this is not the type of thing you want to do when you're doing a comic. When you're doing a comic crowdfunding project, you want to make sure your lead focus is that main character, and you want that main character to be the one that everybody sees, and you want that character to be sold as related to the book, because again, your professional reputation is on giving the customer what you provided them. And I didn't get that with this book. And again, the story was halfway decent on this book, and the art is actually great. But the problem here is the coordination of the project. And this is an area that the coordinators of this project really need to really focus on, because again, you only get one chance at a first impression, and if you don't give your readers a good first impression, then you may not get readers for your next issue. Now, my first full comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, that was on Kickstarter last year, is now available on Lulu for purchase of individual copies. So if you want to get an individual paper copy of John Haynes at Death's Door, you can get that comic on Lulu at the same price people did for the Kickstarter. And if you want to get my second comic, Esteem No Good Deed, you can get that comic on Amazon.com for 99 cents right now. And if you want to pick up some of my other action-packed fantasy fiction, like the ISIS series, the Esteem series, the John Haynes series, and the books of novels that I've done like Eternal Night, A Recipe for Success, The Thetas, and books in the Spinsterella trilogy, a Black Goth trilogy. You can find all those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find those books at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you want to see me be able to do another comic project like John Haynes at Death's Door, you can go out here and drop a donation to the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Coming to paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, 1987. Learn lessons about life and teenage love in the 1980s with this coming-of-age John Haynes story. Pre-order your copy of John Haynes, 1987 at online booksellers everywhere.